Hey, Rick, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Rick? Hello. How about now? Can you hear me now, Rick?
Yes, I can.
Awesome.
So I'm trying to reestablish camera angle. Do you think this logo is a problem? I don't know how.
No, no, shouldn't be an issue.
Okay. Just can't shake those glare of my own monitor, my glasses. But maybe I'll. We got 8 minutes. Looks like I'm gonna try to get a slightly different shirt. Yeah, I'm not liking that either. Hmm.
Hey, Tom, can you hear me?
I got you. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yes.
Rick, can you hear Tom? And can you hear me?
Yep,
Hey, good morning.
I can hear both of you just great.
Awesome. All right, we're only a few minutes away. If you have a local recording going, Tom, I would suggest starting it. So Rick has sent a lot of photos and some videos. We're going
Awesome.
to run that through. We'll just probably start with some basic questions. You don't have to give away too much personal information. We'll just refer to you as Rick. You're from Kansas. Is that
Yep.
correct? Unless you're
Thanks for
wanting
starting
to
a little
share
early
that.
with us.
Yeah.
Tom's audio there was pretty garbled. I don't know what you said.
Yeah, and I'm getting some weird feedback in my ear here, Art.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I can hear the feedback.
Yeah, there's a big delay on my side.
Interesting. Okay. Well, if I don't do it, I could do it differently. I can just put my mic into there. Is that any better?
Let's see. Yeah, sound better now?
Is that better?
Cool. Yeah, and I'm not hearing me anymore, so that's good.
All right. So that's just a little thing. Let me just go back here for a minute. Quickly change the mix that I send.
I think I need a bigger poster. I just made that this week.
All right, so Zoom, I don't want to send anything into Zoom except me and well, I guess I can't do it that way. All right, so you guys probably won't hear any of the intro stuff, but we'll get it all sorted out next time.
Okay.
And I just can't get the teleprompter feed is just a train wreck. It is
Sidecar.
a train wreck. Source, guest, source, Tom. Okay, good. All right. So we'll start in a second here.
Okay.
All right.
I don't know why that sidecar keeps freezing. All right, I'm going to run the intro. The mic's going to mute, and then we'll come up on a 2. We'll do a little housekeeping, and then we'll introduce Rick.
All right.
Stand by.
Sounds good.
You're listening to the Talk is Jeep podcast, a discussion of everything and anything related to Jeep life. These conversations are recorded live, and the opinions stated here have not been checked for sobriety. Now, here are your hosts, Art Aldrich and Tom Chartrand.
Everybody. This is the Talk is Jeep show.
Good morning,
Art,
Jeepers.
and this is Tom, my co-host. Tom, good morning.
Hey, good morning. How's everything down in New York?
It's it's always a technical jungle over here trying to make all this tech happen live, and hopefully, I don't know if we have any of our friends watching on YouTube. Maybe we can get a little thumbs up or something that we got audio and picture working. I found a couple of technical gremlins from last show that prevented my audio from being heard properly. Hopefully that's working better.
You're sounding good over here.
Yeah, the problem wasn't so much what you and I hear. The problem was what's going out.
As is always the case. Behind the wheel, everything's fine. What's happening in the real world is a whole different thing.
So if you're joining us live, which not too many people are at the moment, then you know that we try to go every couple of weeks live on YouTube, and the purpose is to have a live conversation, engage with other Jeepers talking about our favorite vehicle. And the majority of you are watching or listening after we're live. So there's a
Right.
couple of housekeeping notes that I'll give, just to remind everybody that if you're watching on YouTube and you like what you see, give the video a thumbs up. That would help us out. We'd appreciate that. And of course, if you're listening on a podcast platform like Apple or Spotify, a rating would be awesome. A review would be even better. That helps the show. That helps us get more eyeballs, get more
Give us a
interesting
follow.
stories. And Tom, you're managing our social media platforms a bit. Where can they find us on social media?
Well, they can go on Instagram, and we'd love to see your favorite rigs and what you're doing out there on @TalkIsJeepShow on Instagram, and show us what you're doing. Show us where you are. Show us what the weather is like. Right now, it's blowing 25 miles an hour here, but blue sky out there. So I'm looking forward to bringing Julius out for a little run to the beach later and see how he does in the 20 degrees Fahrenheit and 25-mile-an-hour winds, and hopefully won't get a lot of salt blowing through it. And but show us where you are. Show us where you're jeeping. Show us what your rig looks like. We'd love to see it.
We also have a email, talkisjeeppodcast@gmail.com. And of course, we have our voice mailbox, which is a phone number you can call and leave us a message, 802-441-5377. You can reach out, leave us a message, comment, feedback, something that you want to hear us talk about, or, pitch us on having you on to talk about your Jeep rig. And it doesn't really matter if it's, a mall crawler or a rock crawler or just a plain Jane Jeep. If you've got a story you want to tell about it, then, we'd be interested in hearing about it. So with that, let me pop in our guest, Rick. Good morning, Rick.
Rick, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you.
So Rick, you found us on YouTube, I'm assuming, and you've been watching.
I think it was it's through my podcast app.
Oh, awesome!
Great.
And Rick, tell us. I know you've got a Jeep history a bit, but can you recall, like, what was your first awareness of a Jeep?
Well, I think growing up in the 70s and 80s, I would see the CJs driving around, and I grew up on a small farm. And somebody that lived down the road a ways had a CJ. At this point in time, I don't know what it was, but when they would stop in and talk a little bit, I'd kind of check it out, look at it. But that was before I could even drive. So I've been aware of them since the 70s.
And what was your first Jeep? The first Jeep you owned? Do you remember?
Technically, it was an XJ, a 1998 XJ. But it was my wife's vehicle. And we had that until the Durangos came out. The Durango was a superior vehicle for what we needed. So we only had that XJ for a year. And then fast forward to the 2016 JKU. That's when things got that's when I entered Jeep life. I'll put it that way.
Okay. So you were looking for a 4-door Jeep.
Yeah, essentially. My sister-in-law at the time had one, and she still lives back home. And I knew it could handle gravel roads and salt and mud and snow that is associated with. And I gave it a drive. I test drove one day when we were back home for Christmas, and that's when I got the bug. Like, I need to try these out. And I had a Dakota at the time. The transmission was going bad on it. So when the transmission went out on it, I decided it's time to try JKU.
Okay, so I think I'm going to play some pictures that you provided to us. And I think this is
I can't wait to see
your first Jeep here. Let's bring this up. Is that your first JKU?
Yes. and that is in the San Juan Mountains of Colorado, around Ouray, Telluride. At this point in time, we had joined a local Jeep club, Northeast Kansas, although we have members in Missouri and Nebraska too. And we went to Ouray, and now that's the second Jeep, the purple one.
Yeah,
But the first one was
these are gonna just scroll.
okay.
So
So yeah, the first one, I knew Jeeps had a good fan following, and I found a club, and they said they're going to Colorado, so we jumped in and went also. It was with a stock Willys Wheeler. Other people, that's Telluride right there, the town of, we were stopped for lunch. So we jumped in the club and took our Willys Wheeler with us, and or it took us, I guess. And
did you know other people who had, like, I mean, getting a Jeep and getting into a club pretty quickly is like, I'm curious, like, I didn't even know there were Jeep clubs when I got my first Jeep. Like, how did you even know that these were out there?
I think there's a Jeep dealership, or a local one, that used to have a Jeep Jamboree, a small Jeep Jamboree. I don't think it was before, I think, Jeep really was enforcing the naming rights. So every year I thought that'd be cool to go to, but I didn't have a Jeep. So when I finally bought one, I started looking for a club to go do things with, because I knew it was a type of vehicle that enthusiasts would. I knew there'd be a club around somehow. That and Corvettes and Mustangs, I think.
So was it a simple search, or did you hear about it from a local retailer, or what did you do to find out that info?
Well, there was enough windshield banners around town that I knew there was a club. I couldn't remember it, but the name of it. So I just found it on Google, maybe on YouTube, or Facebook. So as the Flint Hills Jeep Club, I'm still a member. That's where we go. We never wheel alone. We always go with other people, because if you get in trouble, you get, as in mechanical trouble, they'll help you get out and get home safely. So that's the club I found, Flint Hills Jeep Club, and I've been to quite a few different places.
So you had the first Jeep, and did you do much work to it, or did you pretty much just wheel it like stock?
Pretty much stock, because it became apparent pretty quickly that if I was to keep up with other club members, I needed lockers and 35-inch tires. And I did not want to deal with modifying that Willys Wheeler. I pretty quickly realized, okay, a Rubicon would be a better starting point for me. I could keep up with club members and adapt as I went, or upgrade as I went. So this purple one ended up on a local lot, and they had already put on the lift and the bigger tires. And I thought, okay, there I am. I'm ready to go. And at that point, everybody in our club, aside from a few that had Wrangler Unlimiteds, were on 35s. There were a couple people on 42s at the time. So I made the switch, and that's the color of our local college team, and the university. So, and we're big fans of that university. So we just it was a perfect fit. I was like, well, this is the Jeep for us right here.
And you gave this Jeep a name, didn't you?
Yeah. So my wife's, at the time, she had a Wrangler also that came with the dual top option, and it had a tan top. So I thought, I'm going to try this soft top on mine. And when I put that tan on it, I was like, well, that's like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So, and I don't think I sent a color photo with that top on it, but that's when it ended up with the name of grape jelly. Because when you put that tan top, it just looked like a PB&J driving down the highway.
Oh, that's awesome.
So this
some dirt, like right there. The dirt makes it look like peanut butter and jelly too.
Yeah. So this was a Rubicon used, it sounds like, that had 35-inch tires on it.
No, it was new. It was
new.
the last year. It was a 2018 JKU, and the dealership had put on the lift, larger tires. And that made me feel better because it's warranted, through them too.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it was a tough one to get rid of because it was the last of the JKUs.
Right.
And I'm still unsure if I should have kept it, but can't look back.
Was there any hesitation, like you were buying a Jeep that was technically being replaced in the same model year with the JLs?
I did test drive the JLs a little bit. um, they didn't have really what I wanted on the lot. At that point in time, I had not ordered a vehicle at all. So I don't know. To be honest, the purple just sucked me in. It was the perfect. That color is just extremely well matched for our other hobbies, and it's just such a brilliant, bright color. If you're on a trail, people see you. They know where you are. They know which Jeep is yours. It just fit our personality, my wife and I both. So
So
I mean,
you,
that's great too. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Tom, go.
No, I was going to say a lot of dealerships don't really do a lot of buildups like that. I think they're coming to that. You're seeing a lot of these new Jeep dealerships out in the market, and you're going to see all sorts of rigs. But back when that was being sold, there was a little bit of a incentive to get all the things that you wanted on it, being your second uh, JK, JKU, and that was great to have it all set up the way you wanted it.
yeah, I mean, I did do some things to it. I added skid plates, the underbelly stuff, because I mean, where we go, there's always rocks that are taller than than you really want them to be, and it just makes me nervous thinking all those exposed components underneath your vehicle without some layer of steel or aluminum between you and the rock,
For
and
sure.
rock sliders and some bumpers and that stuff like that too. At this point, I didn't have a winch, but if you never wheel alone, you can go years without needing a winch, really.
Absolutely.
So needless to say, you felt more comfortable wheeling this one with the Rubicon package and the features that come along with that, the lockers and the bigger tires.
Yeah, I would not trade my course of action to get to this point, because wheeling what I don't know if you guys have heard, but a lot of times people call the Willys Wheeler a Ruby Light. Um, there were times I knew I needed lockers because I just couldn't get past an obstacle that maybe somebody right in front of me, almost identical setup, they could because they had lockers. So, and the electronic sway bar disconnect was a big draw too, because I got tired of those manually
Disconnects.
disconnecting with
Yeah.
JKS disconnects. That I bent a tab on the axle one time, and getting that disconnect back on was a real pain in the butt.
Yeah, and then you got to have someone like rock the other side of your vehicle if you're not level. It's
Yeah,
it's a little, but again, like you have the I don't know why, and maybe it's just me. Like there just doesn't seem to be the same type of local group in my area. I know there are some in the where I live, the tri-state they call it, New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, but it's I don't know, seems a little different than other people who I've heard talk about Jeep clubs. So that sounds like a real, resource that's helped, shape your path.
it's helped me spend more money than I should have. So we do have a military installation fairly close, about 20 miles away, and because of that, I think there's more Jeeps on the street than your average community, and we do have two pretty robust off-road parks nearby. One's about 30 miles north,
Wow.
um, and that's the Tuttle Creek Off-Road Park. It's managed by the Corps of Engineers. Then there's a private
Oh,
park in southeast Kansas that's called Kansas Rocks Park, and it's an LLC. And they have a lot of events, and a lot of the popular YouTubers have stopped by there on their way through. So, contrary to popular belief, eastern Kansas has a lot of vertical terrain, rocks, lots of trees. Um, you get much past that eastern third, though. That's when the prairies and the flat terrain happens. But
Flattens out.
yeah, the eastern third we've got a lot of challenging terrain. In some ways, more challenging than some of the popular off-road towns, I guess, in the Southwest, because they have a lot more traction than we do. We've got mud and sand.
well, you're still ahead of me for proximity, but
Absolutely.
Just
that's
luck. It's just luck.
yeah. So how did you or why, I guess not how, let me rephrase that. Sorry. Why did you jump from your two-door JKU to a Gladiator?
Um, so for about 17 years, I had a Dakota, Dodge Dakota. That was the perfect truck for me. Just enough of a truck I could do what I needed to. And I had the Ford Wrangler for a while, and I got into the Jeep stuff. Then Jeep released this Gladiator, and I fought it off for about a year and a half. But then when I realized it's half Dakota, half Wrangler, that's what I need. That's exactly what I need. So I test drove a couple of them. My wife rode with me. She test drove it, and we decided that's what we needed. It's half Dakota, half Wrangler. So yeah, and I see the stickers on these early photos of mine. For some reason, the dealership ordered a package that said Gladiator on it. Like, who needs that sticker? If you know it's a Gladiator, I mean, you don't need to see the sticker. And the people that don't know it's Gladiator, they probably don't even care. So but it was the first year. That was a 2020. So I'm sure they wanted people to realize what it was. But that sticker lasted about a week. I got rid of it. If it said Rubicon, I probably would have left it.
So knowing, like, you've obviously had two Jeeps in front of this one, and did you have a plan going into the Gladiator, like what upgrades you were deeming worthy, and you know, had probably other things you were like, yeah, you know, it's not worth, I'm not doing this to the Gladiator because I didn't get my money's worth from the other Jeeps?
So at this point in time, there were I'd probably like 6 or 8 months I had seen just enough Gladiators on the off-road parks. And I think in Colorado when we went on a trip that I realized that they could wheel with Wranglers that have 35s, maybe a little bit better, if you put the proper protection underneath. So one of the first things I did is I went up to a Rock Hard 4x4 and bought the full belly skid plate system. So it's got the engine, transmission, gas tank, skid plate system underneath. That's a couple grand. But it's a lot cheaper than replacing the components that would get damaged.
For sure.
Then I upsized to 35-inch wheels on those AEV wheels. Sorry, 35-inch tires on AEV wheels. There was a guy in Kansas City that I kind of know more through social media. And then one of our members in Omaha that the guy in Omaha, he's a retired engineer, and he is constantly going on different trips. And he very quickly, I could see through his social media that, okay, that's what I want to be able to do. Yeah, Wayne Bennett he's always on some excursion. He just got back from, I can't remember the trip, but it's with 4Exploring. Basically, you sign up and you go with that outfit. I think the owner of TNT Customs runs that. So those, I guess you'd call them overlanding excursions, are what I would want to try to do a little bit more of instead of just driving around in circles at an off-road park.
Do you find that wheelbase a big challenge as a difference from the old JKU?
Only on the Rubicon Trail, because there are some very large boulders that you can very easily get turtled on. High centered, I guess would be the other way to phrase it. But if you have that full belly skid plate system, it's really, you just slide over things as long as you get the right amount of momentum. I think what has stopped me more, just holding my tracks, and there's no way to negotiate around it, is when you get up to a ledge and you get your front tires up, that back bumper is dragging on the flat ground behind you. A lot of people think if you're coming off a ledge going down, it's going to be a problem, but you have so much weight and momentum going forward, it'll pull you off a ledge. But the flat ground behind you when you're starting to climb is I think that's a bigger hassle, because you're stuck. Once that bumper or hitch is stuck in the ground and the rest of your weight is up, trying to go up, that's the Gladiators, and I silly enough to say, Achilles heel. So there's a picture of a work day at Kansas Rocks Park, and everybody said, "Rick, you should haul the trailer," because we bought new picnic tables to haul up to this back corner up a climb. And they said, "Well, you've got the Gladiator. You should hook onto the trailer." I'm like, "Well, okay." So
So you
it's
don't pull
hauled
you
wood
don't
and picnic tables for
you
the
don't pull a
off-road park.
trailer you don't pull a trailer normally when you're doing your overlanding, do you?
No, and actually, really, the only what I would call an overland trip I've done so far is the Rubicon Trail, because you have to camp. Uh, you can't really make it in one day. If you do, you don't really enjoy it. And the Flint Hills Jeep Club really is not. It's not really anybody that does the overlanding thing. They're more of a rock crawler club,
Uh,
and they take most of them take their Jeeps to the destination on a trailer. So I'm kind of at a crossroads now. Like, I need to start recruiting some more people to go do a few other things besides rock crawling it. Um, so after the Rubicon Trail, I'm kind of rediscovering, like, okay, now what?
it's
That's
kind of
another
two
picture from
different. Yeah,
that's another picture from Kansas, the off-road park down Kansas Rocks Park, southeast Kansas.
it's kind
So
of two different mindsets when, people want to do the rock crawling, but have to haul their Jeep to the location,
Yeah,
as opposed to having it be a daily driver and being able to take it where you want to go to do some of those more adventurous rides.
yeah. This Gladiator's never been on a trailer. I drove clear from Kansas to California to do the Rubicon Trail and drove back. There's about 5 of us that drove out there and drove back. I did
Nice.
bend some steering components and the rear sway bar connection. That link got bent, but I could still drive it home. Now, when we went to Moab, I borrowed a trailer for my purple Wrangler because I just didn't want to risk it. So
Sure.
yeah, I think when I get older, I'll probably end up with a trailer queen. People call the Jeeps that only go in places on the trailer. A lot of people call them trailer queens. I'll probably end up one sometime, but I don't know. Don't know when that'll happen.
so what other upgrades have you thought about or planning to do to your Gladiator?
I thought about everything. uh, right? We've thought about everything for our Jeeps.
Yeah.
So I bought probably the biggest expense was that topper you see in some of the pictures, the Alucab topper. And contrary to maybe popular belief, I bought that for every day I'm not on the trail, because the bed is pretty small on these Gladiators and the bed height is pretty low. And I've heard or read that they did that on purpose because you want to be able to see over the back of the bed when you're on a trail. So cubic feet inside that bed is pretty small. So I bought that topper because if you go anywhere and you want something secured in it, there's not much bed space. So that topper really keeps things, people from grabbing what they want and taking it, or cutting through your soft tonneau cover or something.
Yeah, I mean
Um,
that's kind of the thing with the Jeep, especially if you have a soft top. You
yeah.
don't leave stuff in it because it's so easy to break into.
It's a leap of faith.
So that's the goofiest looking Jeep right there, isn't it? The Gladiator without the top on it.
Yeah.
They don't look good without the top on them, but I don't care. It's more about the experience than the looks.
That's
So,
absolutely it.
so that picture is from a trail at Sedona, Arizona. That was a lot of fun to get down there. That's Bonneville Salt Flats. On
Wow.
the
Did
way
you
to the
break any
Rubicon.
land speed records?
No. I yeah, that I didn't really know what to do. I knew I needed to take a couple pictures, but anyway, so back on the question about, I did go with the Mopar lift pretty quick after getting this Gladiator, once again because of the warranty. It had the 36,000 mile warranty with, if you had them put it on. So I did that. I already mentioned the skid plate system. Whether you do the RTEC or Rock Hard 4x4, there's a whole bunch of different companies. But if you're going to go climbing rocks, anything that's loose, or even like tree logs, there's just so many things that could pop up and hit just the right spot or wrong spot.
I
So I wanted to
agree.
do that. Um, those are the big expensive ones. The soft top could have been expensive, but I found one used for $600.
Nice.
So I think I'm kind of at a crossroads. I'm on 35s, and almost everybody says if you go up to 37s, you will never see eighth gear again. And so I would probably need to re-gear if I go up to 37s. And the temptation there is that would, if I had 37s, then I would be closer to the breakover angle of a Wrangler, and the departure angle would improve also. But if I don't know, if I go up to much taller tires, in some ways I think maybe I just need to go back to a Wrangler.
Would you consider like having multiple Jeeps, or like, for me, my Jeep's not a daily driver, so I don't have some of the same pressures that people who drive it every day have, like, oh, I need tires that are quieter, or I need better gas mileage. But I could see, like, you said, like, I need a pickup for certain things. Like, would you consider having multiple Jeeps in your garage for different Jeeping activities?
So about a year ago, my employer said, hey, we think it'd be more beneficial for us if you guys took your vehicles home and then went straight to job sites. So I'm about a year into this not being my daily driver. And it takes 6 months to think, oh, I don't need to drive this to work. I can leave the doors off. I can maybe get a different Jeep. So yeah, if it's not your daily driver, then you can start thinking about it in a whole different way. A lot of people say their build is never done. I'm going to say my Jeep is never final. I could end up with a 2-door. I test drove one about 6 months ago. Those, you guys know what you're talking about. The 2 doors are a lot of fun. They're like a little toy driving around. You can drive a circle, or in some of the tightest spots. So yeah, I think to the point now, I've done so much to this one. It's where I want it to be, because I know what type of adventures I want to go on. There's a lot more little, like $100, $200, $300 things, like those tail lights you see on the camera right now. I've swapped those out for the Oracle lights, because man, trees are just, I've seen too many taillights get knocked out by trees.
That's why I went with the
sure.
Oracles. I pinched mine between 2 trees.
And now that I think about it, I was trying to get this one Rubicon Trail capable, and I got to that point. And I want to do more trails that are out and back. I just need to do that for a while before what I would say end up being in the trailer to the destination kind of group. How many years that'll be, I don't know. Yeah, this is
Right.
the video you're showing there is our Jeep Club when we went to the San Juan Mountains in 2022, I believe.
Oh, there's an old school Gladiator we just saw.
Yeah, that's Wayne Bennett's Gladiator. The last one was. That the bigger J10, the guy called it Frankenstein, and it was not street legal. So he had to trailer it to the trailhead just like a side by side. That was kind of a headache. But he had fun until the brake line broke, and glad I wasn't straight ahead of him when the brake line broke.
Oh God.
So yeah, I think I've walked right up to the edge. Like, do I want to take this build to bigger and more capable, or do I do trails and adventures that are good for this vehicle? I'm kind of at a crossroads, and I'm really happy with the way it performs on the highway and off. So, and the funny thing is, I got my build list over here on the right. About some of the third of the things I could just transfer over if I switch to a JL. I don't think I'll take the winch off. I'm just gonna leave the winch on this one and put it on buy a new one for the new vehicle. Because I transferred this one over from a Jeep, and I think you're a little crazy if you transfer a winch more than once. That's just not worth it.
Yeah, those bolts get really tightened and rusted and stuck.
Yeah. So I do think there's probably some misconceptions about gladiators. Our turning radius is not as bad as people think. And you know that when you're on a trail and the trail leader says, well, you guys in the gladiator may need to do like a 3 or 4 point turn here. When it's kind of like pulling a trailer. If you set up your turn well, like start wide and then cut hard, um, the turning radius is not. I've not encountered it being a big problem. And with the Taser Mini, which is a thing you plug in to help with all kinds of settings, there's a feature on that called I think it's called wheel lock, um, whatever it's called, turn lock. So when you peg out your steering to the left, it'll apply the ABS brakes to that rear left tire. So it almost like locks up the rear left tire when you're trying to turn extremely left. And that does help some. It does not help if that tire has a lot of traction, like on the rock, like some of the rocks in Arizona had a lot of traction, kind of like Moab rocks, which sidebar here. I finally found out why they call that stuff slick rock. It seems odd because you have so much traction. Well, a friend of mine said, yeah, I think it's because of the covered wagons. Where settlers were going across that part of the country, the wagon wheels that were wood that had steel bands on them, for them, that is slick rock. Because old steel wheels would really slide on that gritty sandstone, I guess, or whatever that rock is. But it's not slick rock for us because we have great traction. But that's where that phrase came from, slick rock. Huh. So seemed odd. But yeah, I think they're more capable than people realize, but you can get high centered. If you have a little momentum, you can overcome that. It's that back bumper and I can see why so many people bob the beds of these extreme builds, because that is the Achilles heel of the Gladiators, that breakover.
I actually like the way that some of those bobbed beds look. I mean, that's a really nice look.
Yeah, there's a couple aftermarket companies. I don't like because they sell a bed, just a complete bed, and they don't match up with the rest of the lines as well. I don't want to say the company names because don't want to disparage them, but I prefer when people that take it into a body shop and they cut some of the length off and slide the actual tailgate to match up with the part you cut it from, like remove 8 inches or even a foot. I think some people are doing that. You probably have to cut the frame some.
Yeah, the ones I've seen, they chop the frame and they shorten it, and yeah, those are the ones that really look nice, in my opinion.
What I would like to know is, if you do that much, you've got to be getting pretty close to a Wrangler, a JLU. So I'm not sure I would do that.
Almost a difference between an old TJ and an LJ. A little bit of an extended bed, right?
Yeah.
I guess you could take the approach where you could take a JLU and convert the rear into a pickup bed, or you take the other approach, which is the Gladiator, and you shorten it and you make it more manageable.
That reminds me, an early story when I first had a Gladiator. There weren't a bunch of them on the highway or anywhere, and people were asking me, so does it come with a top that connects all of it together? Like, no, this is not a Wrangler. It has a specific truck bed, just like any other truck. So people thought maybe there was a hardtop that covered everything. Well, there's a separation between your cabin and the bed. So I guess, if you do a lot of rough and tumble camping and trips, it is nice to have that. You can throw the muddiest winch line or tow line you want in the back, or a muddy spare tire in the back, and it's not going to, you can just wash it off and it's not going to affect your nice clean interior. You won't have to smell the mud the whole way home, because the bed is completely separate. It's evident now, but in early days, people didn't realize that they're a separate bed. Some people didn't. So this is Black Bear Pass video he's showing, and the steps where you're starting to come along on that left side, there's the stream that's running. You can't really see the water down there. And then Telluride's off in the distance. I did that one the first year we had our Gladiator because there was no lift. And on that trail, you want to have as lowest center of gravity as possible. That I would do that one again, but the taller, more top heavy vehicle you have, and that's a liability. So
Just
that was
beautiful.
yeah. I really think the San Juans or just Colorado in general is probably my favorite place to go wheel. You can get away from the heat, that's for sure. It's not hot or humid there. And the terrain's still kind of challenging because a lot of the loose rock moves around. But the scenery is just amazing. There's so many colors. I think I could go back and forth to be honest, from the San Juans to the Moab, Sand Hollow kind of area, back and forth. That stretch, that's where I'd go wheel every time. Probably. I don't like trees that you got to mess with. You worry about knocking off them, mirror or tail lights or anything like that. Trees are just a nuisance when it comes to wheeling. I know they're an obstacle, but I just don't like them being so close.
This looks a little heart pounding. This trail is so narrow.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
that's Black Bear Pass. And then this video is running now. It's on the top of like Imaging Engineer. I don't know. We did so many trails that week, but this one if you're up there like 3 or 4 in the afternoon, there's a pretty good chance it's going to snow or hail, rain on you at the very peak, which is like 12 to 14,000 feet. The scenery is just so amazing up there, and so that it's August. This video is taken in August, and it's snowing on the mountaintops. So of course not accumulating, but that's just a fun dash. And dash videos are not very interesting, but this one I thought I would include. It's very refreshing in August for that weather, though. That's for sure.
So if you were to, let's say, have some unfortunate situation where you broke an axle or you broke drive shaft, like, are you upgrading those components to something stronger, or at that point are you like, oh, maybe I stay factory and look at building a different Jeep, with my money?
So at this point, I stay ahead of, like, the Oracle taillights, for example. I kind of figured those would be something I would break. So I replaced them with something a little more, well, those don't stick out as far. And I've kept the old. The full belly skid plate system, that's supposed to be preventative measure. So I don't have to replace things that might go up there and break it. But I did crack one of those. I don't know when it happened, but I noticed after the Rubicon Trail. So I've replaced that with the same thing. So I think, and then some of the steering components, I'd like to stay as close to stock on things that are already stock, because if say you're wheeling in Kentucky, you can go to a Jeep dealership and get the same part and put it right back on. Whereas if you have something really, and this is people that are driving their vehicle to where they're, on their venture, not on a trailer. I think that's a different category. Those people can just throw it on the trailer and ride with somebody else for the rest of the week.
That's true.
But so far I've tried not to get too extravagant with aftermarket parts that will get me home. Like I said, the trailer crowd, it's a different Trailer Queen Jeeps that you pull up on the trailer when it breaks. That's a different mindset. And we have had club members that break, and at least from the in-state parks, one of our other club members will say, well, I'll put yours on my trailer and drive my own Jeep home, So we help each other out in that regard. But if I break something major,
it does change your mindset, though, as far as how much you're willing to, push your vehicle over said obstacle. Because if you have to drive it, I don't know how far it is from, your house to the Rubicon Trail, but if that's a 3-day drive or a 2-day drive, that probably plays some, bearing on how hard you're going to push the Jeep.
Yeah, for sure. That's a trail that it depends on your style of wheeling. Some people just love to send it. And if you're one of those people that can't fight the urge, yeah, you better get a trailer. But I like to enjoy the experience, and I don't mind going a little slower because I want to see if it'll slowly crawl before I have to back up, second try, give it a little more momentum. So, and back on, I'm still thinking about your question about replacement parts. I think it's a case by case basis for me still, because my steering's a little wobbly after the Rubicon. I know I got to deal with a few things there, and I may go with some upgraded aftermarket steering components. So I think it's a case by case basis for me, at least.
Yeah, I think like the way I look at it, like my two-door JL, like I'm not going to sell it. I'm not going to get rid of it. I mean, unless, it rolled and it was like catastrophically damaged. Like that's
Yeah.
my Jeep until, I'm dead. So I would spend money every time something breaks, every time there's an opportunity, I do try to upgrade it. It sounds like you're maybe like, oh, I'm willing to look at a different platform to build my next Jeep, perhaps, or I'm willing to, you're not stuck to the grave with this one.
No, and I don't know if we brought up or if people have seen the pictures, but I'm nicknamed this Jeep Gray Matter because I just waste a lot of brain cells thinking about this Jeep. Like, what am I going to do to it? What am I not going to do to it? Where am I going to go? Where am I not going to go? What am I going to talk about on the podcast? So I'm like, it's Gray Matter. This is my brain. This is my brain on Jeep. So that's why it's called Gray Matter. And that's my Instagram account too. If I do trade it in for a different Jeep, maybe it needs to be gray. So I can keep rolling with that Gray Matter part. But it's a case by case basis. I don't have a big picture plan. If they stop making the 2-doors, I might just have to go get a 2-door because those are the quintessential Jeep in my mind. The 2-door Wranglers.
Yeah.
And if they stop making them,
yeah,
I might just have to make sure I get one so I always have one.
I agree. Any interest in a 392 or a bigger, Hellcat or Elephant? Any interest there in those bigger platforms?
There's a Jeep dealership I drive by a couple times a day. They have 2 392s on the lot. If you pay for it, I'll go buy it for me. Yes, there's they stop making those. I mean, that just came out this week. It's been rumored, but I think there was a release. That would be a heirloom kind of Jeep too, I think, is if you could buy a 392, provided we can still buy gasoline for it in 30 years.
I just like some of the prices, like you get these factory 392, builds. I mean, they're almost pushing 6 figures. It's crazy.
I think there's a 20-year Rubicon, or is it 30? I think they have an anniversary 392 that's
20th anniversary.
Yeah, that's the one I saw. The sticker was 98,000.
But
and that's the price. When I was growing up as a little kid, I thought 100,000 was a house.
Yeah, absolutely. But would you buy a $98,000 Gladiator Rubicon 392 and then thrash it around? Or again, would that see in my head, like, okay, maybe I'm not beating that one up.
So I have an answer for you, and because I heard this when I got a brand new Gladiator, it was closer to 100,000 than not. I'll put it that way. I tell people, actually, all my Jeeps, I've said this: if you are on a football team and you're going to start a new season, you're going to buy a brand new pair of football cleats, and that first game, it may be rainy, muddy, crazy, people grabbing your football cleats. The conditions are crazy, but you want the best shoes. You're not going to go to the thrift store and buy some broken down old pair of shoes. The shoelaces are going to break the first game. You're going to buy new football shoes. And I think our Jeeps are kind of like, or soccer. I mean, they get abused. They're in all kinds of conditions. They get grabbed, kicked, pulled, ripped all the time. So this is what I bought it for. This is what I'm going to do with it. Other people that doesn't make sense. They want an old Jeep that's cheaper, I guess. But do you trust it as much? Can you buy parts for it at the dealership the next day? Not so much. I don't think any plan is wrong, but that's my mindset. So yeah, if I had a 392, I'd take it on the trails too. It's just that price is up there. And the 3.6 on our Jeeps, they keep using this Pentastar. I do not have one problem with them. You're in low range; they seem to be responsive.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, but like if I for some reason blew up my 3.6, I would consider putting a 392 in my two-door. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Will it fit? I don't know.
I think it will.
Okay. Yeah.
I haven't measured it, but I mean, I think it's the same engine bay. I think obviously you have to do some stuff with the front spring rates and things like that. But I mean, I think that would be a blast.
And you would have one really good podcast. You'd get a lot of clicks and reviews and likes. So go out today and blow up your engine and start on that podcast.
So the other thing I was thinking about, and I've talked to Tom about this, like, what I would like to see. Obviously, vehicles are, moving, and, Chrysler or whatever the corporate overlord to Jeep is now, Stellantis.
Yeah.
They're developing Jeeps. I've seen the concepts. Like in a new Jeep, like what would you like to see come from the manufacturer?
For a while I was saying a small truck. And that's what I've got. So I think they've already done it. But those two doors, they're so fun. They're just so nimble. A JL on 35s, I could have a lot of fun in one of those too. So the electric vehicles, I have a friend that we do a bicycle. There's a big gravel race. People from all across the world come to race in it. And then some Jeep clubs provide support. Some of us haul media around. Other people sweep the course to, find cyclists that have thrown in the white flag. Anyway, so this guy, we're at a stopping point watching cyclists go by, and he drives up behind us in his 4xe, but he's in the electric mode. We couldn't hear him at all. I looked down because I could hear the gravel rustling, and I thought somebody was walking up behind me. It was that Jeep. So the thought of being out in nature on one of the trails in the electric mode is very appealing, but they're so much more heavy. Aren't they like 2,000 pounds heavier?
Yeah, they're heavy. I also like the idea. Tom and I have talked about it on previous episodes, where if Jeep actually produced, because I have no interest in a four-door or a Gladiator. My interest is really in the two-door, and if they did a two-door all electric that had the outstanding torque and the off-road capability and the water sealed battery, like they've shown in a couple of concepts, I probably would buy that, just not to replace my Jeep, my gas Jeep, but maybe in addition to, I just think there would be something about being outside and not having to hear the whine of the power steering pump or the engine at a high RPM. Like that would be interesting to me.
They've got to get the battery size and weight cut down a lot.
Yeah, that'll happen. That'll happen over time.
Yes.
And I think that is definitely the future. And yeah, at some point they'll be like, oh, if I only had a gas Jeep, and I'll have one. But
yeah,
at some point they're going to get there and the gas will be done.
Yeah, there was a guy that took a Wrangler and built it into the two-door Gladiator for Quadratech, and they're doing those trail cleanups. Yeah. And he talked about how much room the battery. He took a 4xe and made it into a two-door Gladiator. And he talked about how much room that battery still needed from, as a 4xe to start from. So yeah, but our hand tools, I've got drill and reciprocating saw in the garage. Those batteries used to be a lot bigger and heavier than they are now.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I appreciate it. This has been fun, and no.
We have a comment coming in. Let me just pop this in. Dennis is also commiserating with the fan noise. The fan noise on the JLs is tremendous. I agree with that, and I would not be um, unhappy about not having to hear that fan.
So I was one of the first people with the JLJT platform in our club on a regular basis. And I was so relieved when a couple other people got the JLs, because then I'd hear that fan noise that I was only hearing with mine.
Yeah,
And it clarified, like, okay, it's not, my Jeep's not messed up. It's just the way the JL fans decide to click on and
yeah.
run a lot more.
Yeah. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the JL platform. I almost bought a JK in 18. You know, it was like on the lot. They were going to give me a good deal, but I did drive the JL and I was like, this is just a much better starting point. But we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what they have coming forward. I think, you know, I don't know. I don't know where they're going. I think obviously the engines are going to change and that kind of stuff. But
So have any of you driven the turbocharged, is it 2.8 liter or is it even smaller one?
the 2 liter turbo diesel.
Yeah.
No.
Well, no, the gas. I thought there was a small turbocharged. If you were to buy a Wrangler now,
Oh, I don't know if that's still an engine option right now.
And then there's the Hurricane, which is a smaller turbocharged. Also, I'm curious how responsive it is, because I think the 3.6 is probably going to go away. They're going to lean more into the turbocharged as the primary engine. But that's only if I, switch Jeeps again.
Yeah. Tom, any closing thoughts from you? Can't hear you, Tom, for some reason.
Do you get a lot of Jeep waves? Is that a thing? I remember when the Gladiators came out. Do you wave to them or not? Just that lifestyle situation.
I do, and I think if you meet a Wrangler, a JL, or to be honest, yeah, when you're coming straight towards them, you can't tell the difference. I can't.
Right.
But what I look for is if you see that square in the middle center of the back window, that's my back window of my truck cab. A Wrangler doesn't have it. So most people that don't wave at me, they're not waving at anybody else.
That's true.
You got to be almost beside the person before you can tell, because that front silhouette it's the same as a Wrangler.
Yeah, I agree.
And then with my topper on, when I have it on, because that's not a permanent fixture. I like getting that thing off of there. When it's on, I get some double takes because people are like, wait, was that a Wrangler or Gladiator?
Yeah.
So yeah, I wave at people. They wave back. I think the people not waving at least me, they just don't wave at anybody.
Yeah, I agree.
Love it.
Dennis is back with another comment that he wheels with someone that has a 2 liter turbo and it does really well on the trail. That's what I've heard as well. I think, there's people who are diesel fans. I think there's lots of, look, you could swap anything in. If you were, you had a picture, I know, of Fred Williams, and he's had that show Dirt every day. And, he's done some, interesting Jeep builds with the diesels and different things.
So
and I think there's lots of opportunity, maybe not from the factory, to keep those things going.
I need to fess up to something. So we were arriving at the Rubicon Trail and we're driving down. I'm looking for the sign because everybody wants a picture in front of the Rubicon Trail sign. And there's this guy recording with some cameraman. And I'm looking to see, like, where's the other sign? Or is that it? Because it's kind of on an incline or decline, whatever. And I get past him and somebody goes, hey, I think that was Fred Williams he's got tube sock like it and tube sock 2 or something like that. Yeah. What? And then they had to remind me, like, who that was, because I was like, we're getting ready to start the trail, the biggest trail of, so far in my lifetime. And I'm like, I'm not looking at other people. I just want to get started. And then so people got to meet Fred Williams in our club. And when I got home, I was like, oh yeah, I should go watch some of his videos. So now I watch, some of his videos.
Yeah, Tom and I are going to do the Moab trip
Moab.
with Fred Williams, part of the Jeep Jamboree this year, which should be fun.
Should be
Oh,
great.
cool. And
Yeah.
I think one of your podcasts, so they require 37s for you? Because
For Rubicon.
Rubicon, yeah.
that's too bad, because I did it in 35s in a Gladiator and drove
Yeah.
clear back home to Kansas.
Yeah.
But it's the pace. I don't think they want you to slow down.
No, they have a pace. It's a bucket list trip for me to do the Rubicon. I'm gonna do it soon. I'm not sure when, but it's definitely a bucket list trip, and I'd like to do it on 35s if I could. I mean, I could go to 37s, but then I have, just more Jeep parts. And when I got rid of my first YJ, I sold the Jeep, and I had like parts for years still in my garage, tops and tires and bumpers and doors. I was just like,
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to have a surplus of Jeep parts right now.
Yeah. So in truth be told, I did winch 3 times on the Rubicon Trail, but I think in my Gladiator on 35s, I think the people that had the most fun were the 2-door Wranglers.
Yeah.
They could take every side shoot, little obstacle they wanted and keep up with the rest of us.
Yeah.
So the pace, the people that require a certain tire size, I think it's just as much about the pace, how quickly the group moves through obstacles, as it is being able to do them.
Right.
We were with a private club. There were 12 of us. We went out there by ourselves. We could go however slow we wanted. So tire size was not.
Yeah, there's definitely something to that. And
yeah.
So, well, Rick, this has been great. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your Jeep vehicle history with us.
Yeah.
And your
Jeep life.
Jeep life. It's great. And hopefully you'll keep watching, and we'll get some other people to share their Jeep life story. We're always looking to hear from new people. So thank you for joining us. And Tom, I guess we'll put a wrap on this one.
Well, thank you, Tom and Art. I appreciate it.
You.
Yep, I appreciate it. And I look forward to Art having a 392 in that 2-door. That your podcast is gonna explode when you do that.
I will work on that. I will work on blowing up my 3.6.
I'm looking forward to that too.
Art, I like your Jeep too. I mean, sorry, Tom. I've checked out your review too, so I like them all. So thank you.
All right, guys.
We'll
see you
so
next
much.
time on Talk is Jeep Show. That was great. Thank you, Rick.
Yeah.